My partner, who I'll call SH, is 24 years old, and I'm 26. My mother, D, is 50 years old, and my father, who I may call Clark, is 52. Being in this kind of position is surreal. I never in a million years thought I would experience it, but here I am. I've never used Reddit before, but I figured I'd check it out to see if anyone could offer any help. People seem to enjoy a little backstory, based on previous postings, so I'll try my best to include all the pertinent information. But since this has only been happening for a week, I apologize if I seem emotional when telling my tale. It was during SH's first year of college that I got to know her. We got together at a frat party that she was attending. My frat and her sorority were hosting a kind of fundraiser bash. But because we had mutual connections, it was simple for us to run into each other and start a chat. In any case, we were unaware until much later that we had grown up in the same towns. It was actually not a big deal. I would offer her a ride whenever we headed home, and it just took an extra 30 minutes or so altogether. Our friendship developed into something more as we spent more time together both inside and outside of the classroom. Because our families were close-knit, we both had the support of our loved ones. Our families swiftly welcomed each other after we told them about our relationship, and our love for one another only grew. I was only around 2 years into my degree when we met, but she was really just getting started. Naturally, I was the first to graduate. I moved back home, which was about 3 hours away, after I graduated because I was offered a good employment opportunity that paid really well. I would go see SH whenever I could while she was still finishing her coursework, and she would reciprocate when she got home. The only reason long distance was difficult was that she was having trouble keeping up with her studies, which left little time for communication. Nevertheless, we managed. Her nose was really stuffed in the book because she wanted to practice law after receiving her first degree, and I truly respected that. I adored her because she was driven. Even I had everything planned out. I could simply feel it in my bones that she was the one. I planned to accumulate sufficient funds to purchase a residence in the city. Since I was making a solid living, I realized I would have to make the compromise to move back into the city and perhaps find a transfer, even though I knew she had a long way to go in school before she could truly practice law. After earning her degree, she moved in with me in the flat I rented in my hometown before deciding to apply to law school. I concurred with her request to take a semester off before beginning classes again. I reasoned that it would allow us time to look around the city for a place where we could call home. Finally, the part you've all been waiting for has arrived. Looking back, there are a lot of things that I disregarded and thought were just my father attempting to get my ex back into the family. For example, I used to think that his frequent phone calls to her were merely to talk about planned family gatherings. When SH's phone called one day while she was taking a shower, I saw it was my dad. When he realized it was me, I responded, and he sounded astonished and upset. He stated he wanted to discuss something with SH that she needed assistance with. When I asked what it was, he said that it was a problem with the flat that she claimed she wanted me to solve but I had never gotten around to. We ended the call after a minute. I sort of smiled and said, "Okay, I feel like there could have been something I maybe missed, but I don't even remember her asking me to fix anything." He added that maybe he was mistaken. I can't believe I missed the sign earlier when I look back. I found out on what seemed like any other ordinary day. Usually before I left for work, SH would make us breakfast. Like every other day, she kissed me goodbye and wished me a happy day. I realized I had forgotten some crucial documentation for a 2 p.m. meeting when I was driving to work. I dismissed it, thinking I would pick it up when I went home for lunch. SH texted me about insignificant stuff during the day, like what to cook for supper and that she had finished the laundry. It was going to be a quick in and out, so when noon rolled around, I didn't bother alerting her that I was coming home. She said something like, "We should go to the new bakery that opened up in town to try some of the gourmet cookies." And she generally took the opportunity to prepare for her LSAT exam, so I quietly left work and made my way home. I saw a truck in the guest parking that looked like my father's as soon as I drew into our building's parking lot, but I ignored it and went inside. I reasoned that perhaps he had resolved the issue with SH regarding what I had neglected to fix, and they were taking care of it. I also believed that neither SH nor my father would give up on me on this one. She didn't bother me at all, it was simply that I was too busy for her, or that was the last time she gave me any kind of trust to handle any household chores. I wasn't too fond of you because of that and the entire emasculating thing, needing to call your dad to save the day. Nevertheless, as I opened the door, I was startled to see a trail of clothes leading to our bedroom. Her clothing were all over the place, her black bra and pink G-string, my father's work boots by the front door, his slacks spread out. Then there was a moaning noise. I knew it was him immediately, but that's not a sound you want to hear from your own father. My stomach turned to mush. I had to witness it with my own eyes for reasons I cannot fathom. I knew no one would believe me, so I pulled out my phone to record. It seemed to operate on autopilot. I recorded as I walked down the hallway to our bedroom, gathering all of the garments that were on the floor in one hand and my phone in the other. I stood there staring at the open door for a good minute or so before tossing their garments onto them. They both jumped as they were fighting and turned to face me. I'm staring at my father, who is completely nude and only wearing his socks, as he makes out with my girlfriend, the love of my life. It was simply too much for me to bear at that particular moment. When my father saw I was filming, he became alarmed and tried to hide from me while yelling at me to stop. I was being thrown pillows by SH. I shoved him back when he reached for my phone, causing him to fall onto the dresser and onto the floor. SH let out a startled shriek. I then aimed my camera in her direction. I said something along the lines of, "How could you? What do you have to say for yourself?" and all the things a parent would say to reprimand their child. After attempting to put his clothing back on, my father scrambled up. I informed him that I will be returning soon to get things for work. But who knows what the future holds now. I said something along the lines of, "She just crap all over my life and made a fool out of me." If either of them were still here when I returned, I would be sending this video to everyone they knew. I had worked my butt off for her and her future. I then put the recording on hold. I told him he was dead and put my phone in my pocket. I told him I was eager to tell my mother. Then, enraged, he stood up and told her he was unable to tell. He lunged at me, attempting to take my phone out of my pocket. If he touches me again, I'll transmit the video to her immediately. He immediately released his grip and began pleading with me to keep quiet and promised that they would never do it again. I informed him that I was providing him with the chance to inform my mother about his activities with my girlfriend. I replied, "Mom's finding out either way." My boss at work called and wanted to know where I was, so I sat in my car and tried to gather myself. I told her I was on my way back, but I didn't realize how long I'd been sitting in the car. I informed her that I was heading to the workplace after gathering the necessary items. But from the moment I walked in, she could tell, simply by looking at me, that something wasn't right. I dismissed her worries, telling her it was nothing, that I would be alright, and that I was excited for the encounter. She was still not convinced, so I showed her the video on my phone and asked for an explanation. She realized silently that not only was my fiancé cheating on me, but she was also seeing another man, my father, whom I had always had the greatest amount of faith in. She offered to help however she could, and recommended that I take a break. She assured me that they would function well in the meeting without me and that she would be understanding if I needed to take a break. However, I rejected, explaining that I only needed a moment and that the best thing I could do at the moment was to clear my head and ace the meeting for which I had prepared extensively. I forced a phony smile on everyone and acted that the meeting was going as usual. I explained to my supervisor that I had to put on such a front because she couldn't understand how I could. Because it seemed like everything else in my life was crumbling, I wanted to be in charge of something. She mentioned she and her husband had a suite in the basement if I wanted somewhere to stay. She's not hitting on me, don't assume that. I consider this lovely, gentle woman, who is in her 60s, to be a second mother. I assured her I'd let her know and thanked her. With each passing day, I felt worse. I was really excited about returning to the apartment. I had no desire to see her. I prayed to God that my dad wasn't still there. I kept checking my phone to see if there was anything from my mom, SH, or Clark, but there was nothing. I can't remember the drive home, but as soon as I got there, everything hit me, and I sobbed for a very long time in my car before heading upstairs. She was sitting on the couch in the living room and looked like complete dog poop when I went in. She jumped up to give me a hug the moment she spotted me, but I pulled her away. I told her she had to get ready and pack. "I have plans for us," I said. "I had planned to wed you. I held out for you." I'm thinking, how is it not exactly what I think it is? She said, "I know, it's not what you think it is, and I was pretty sure my father was inside of you unless he's built like a Ken doll and you were just banging bumps." She began to cry and said that he had pushed himself on her, but I doubted that. "What's not long?" I asked. "How long has this been going on for?" She replied, "Not long." I asked. "There's no point in BSing to me now." She continues by telling me about a brief incident that occurred last Christmas when I went to bed early due to alcohol consumption, and they continued to drink in the basement before having a sexual encounter on the couch. Then she stated that after he invited her to come over a few months ago, when she moved in with me, they both woke up and pretended like nothing had occurred. At first, she expressed her reluctance, but he promised to share their activities with me. My response was, "BS, you still went over." She refused to go even after I told her to. She genuinely broke down in tears and apologized profusely, promising to do whatever it took to make amends. She tried to hold onto my knees like she was a small child when I responded, "Okay, well then I'm leaving," but she persisted, so I had to drag her down the hall to our bedroom. Nevertheless, I determined I wasn't leaving my house, so I ended up packing her crap. She was crying and losing it, so I carried her things all the way to the hallway outside our apartment and told her, "It's time you get the hell out of here." I forced her off my legs and flung her bags into the corridor. She got up and went after I threatened to call the police and send the video to everyone we knew if she didn't leave. Later that night, I called my mother, and she wanted to know if I had seen my father. I declared that I had. She stated he was expected to be back from work by now and she hadn't seen him all day. I briefly considered keeping it from her and waiting for my father to tell her, but I quickly realized that my mother deserved more. I thus told her everything. "I'm sorry to tell you over the phone like this," I said, but then I simply started talking. I sobbed like a baby to my mother as I sat there. My dad apparently tried to pretend that he had just gotten wasted at his brother's apartment, lost track of time, and passed out when he returned the following day. She claimed to know everything, though. After she ejected him from the family house, we have no idea where he has been living and, to be honest, don't really care, but I assume he has lost his job. I appreciate you taking the time to read. I might return later with an update. What could be better than a little father-son bonding over the same woman? I apologize, OP. Who wouldn't want to return home to see their boyfriend and dad having a little game of tonsil hockey and hide the sausage in their bedroom? What kind of midlife crisis causes a man to have an affair with the girlfriend of his own son? That's a whole new level of poorly received dad jokes. And your employer is a true gem, finding you a place to rest and advising you to take some time off because, let's face it, nothing says healing from heartbreak like barging into a meeting at work wearing a forced smile. Update: I've returned for a little. I considered not sharing the film with anybody, but as I sat in my apartment, I couldn't handle it. The guy I used to call my father and his ex had destroyed so many lives with their greed. They were never going to escape this without some sort of scar. Since it was a tiny community, many stories circulated regarding the reasons behind my mom's expulsion of Clark. My mother was too kind to say anything, and I simply couldn't take the drama any longer. I sent the video to a family chat, my entire friend group, and all of our mutual acquaintances because she kept stating he was out fishing. I wanted them to hurt as much as my mother and I did. I will always remember him lying on my bed with my girlfriend, my love, the person I had admired and adored and who I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. It dawned on me that I had been ignorant of both her and Clark's identity all along. I didn't want my mom to have to fabricate lies in order to attempt to shield some jerk. My entire life had been a lie. Shay, Char's older sister, contacted me after I submitted the video, expressing her sincere apologies for what she had done. She remarked that I had done a lot for her and that she was truly rooting for me. She expressed her desire to remain in my life. I took a chance and asked her out, and the following week we're actually going to get coffee. After completing her studies in psychology in Edinburgh, she was working in her own clinic in the city. In any case, Char's life seems to have been entirely destroyed by the video, and her parents aren't speaking to her. They are no longer providing her with academic support. She is no longer attending law school because they have severed their financial support for her education. Additionally, it appears that she is couch-serving a girl she went out with in her sorority. My dad is camping out on an unknown man's property outside of town. In any case, I feel fine and can't wait to see Shay. You can never be sure what lies ahead. Absolutely, OP. It was like unleashing a truth bomb on your little town's gullible citizens when you sent that video. Small town residents, after all, are drawn to drama, so why not provide it for them? Now that Char's life is in disarray, your dad is a recluse in the woods, living in a tent, and you have a sizzling date with Char's sister Shay. After all that, you deserve a little happiness, which coincidentally happens to be with your ex's sister. How come not? Here are the new beginnings, coffee dates, and possibly even a small measure of well-timed retaliation. How do you interpret this? Do you have a comparable tale? Tell us about it in the comments section below. We appreciate you coming here today.